I have a box full of notebooks to prove it, where I can go and pull out any notebook and I can read my visions of the past and compare them to my present, where I'm living those visions. The shift, my friends. Ultimately, when people hear the shift, the Great Awakening, it's happening, all of that, they're thinking of the system's going to come down, a huge political change, the military, the financial system, all of these things. But that's, for the most part, not the shift I really am talking about. I'm talking about a shift that I already experienced, and a shift that many of you have already experienced, and some of you are yet to experience. And that shift is the most radical thing that will happen in your lifetime. There's nothing bigger that will ever happen than this shift. We are programmed and taught to be observers, hopers, and in some instances, people who pray. And the ultimate image that is being transported from generation to generation to generation is you do what society at large shows you to do. You go to school, you fill out the forms, you get a job, you keep your head down, and you hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and pray for whatever you want. And this has been a way of life for a very long time. And in that way of life, you are not really considered a creator. Now, you might feel accomplished in certain things that you do, and certain things are successful, but most people don't see themselves as creators. If they have a belief in a higher power, then they see that higher power as the creator, God the creator. And there's nothing wrong with that. But they don't see themselves as even a spark of that. And so they observe the reality around them, and then they hope that it's going to get better. And they continue observing, and they hope and pray it's going to get better. And there's a huge buffer between where you are and where that hoped or prayed for outcome is. And then there have been people since time immemorial that have been recorded by history as saints, or as somehow more enlightened, or philosophers, or some sort of spiritual people that have perceived themselves differently and spoken about something else that isn't just the observer and the person who hopes for something. They've actually described their life and their experience in themselves as co-creators. That's a big term, co-creator. Now, we can vibe with that. I'm a songwriter, right? So I can walk into a room with other songwriters and we can write a song together. 2 or 3 people write a song together. We are co-writers, co-creators. We co-created that song. Now, that people can wrap their minds around. But when they look at the fabric, their very experience, the reality around them, most people don't feel that they have any influence on it. Most people actually perceive themselves to be subjects at best and victims at worst to the circumstances around them, the circumstances they were born into, the circumstances that the government, politics, the economy creates, and they stay within that limited realm where they get by, they survive, they achieve that. But beyond that, their dreams, their visions, most of them don't really give themselves permission to even go there, to even think about it much, because reality will let them down. And then, as I said, there are those, and this is a growing number, who are tapping into something that is so earth-shattering and life-changing and so transformational that it's hard to describe. It's the power of creation. And I'm not saying I am God, you are God. That's not what I'm saying. I am consistently saying, and I have been saying, though, that if you are a creation, if your spirit is a creation of the one all-powerful creator, then you must have a spark of that within you. And the people that are tapping into it, they are not observers any longer. They're actually co-creators in their reality. And so when they are working on an outcome, or they really desire a change, a betterment, an improvement of their experience, and at best, the experience of all, because this should be included in every powerful vision and intention of mine, it's always included for my highest good and the highest good of all, both equally. If my highest good is not included, I will deplete. If the highest good of all is not included, then that might be detrimental to the highest good of all, and that's what I don't want. So it must be for my highest good and the highest good of all. And so when that begins to happen, and it doesn't just happen, you choose it, you choose to remember it. I have seen within all religious streams, people that have emerged, that have gone so deep into this field of infinite possibilities, into the field of the Creator, they've realized that they are part of that creationship and they could heal. And people say, well, that was a gift of God. Ultimately, of course. But I'm saying this gift is within every real human being. They could see beyond that which can be seen with the eye. And I'm saying ultimately this is within every real human being. They could hear beyond what the ears can hear. And I'm saying it's ultimately within every human being. And they could envision something and impress that vision onto the field, and it would reflect back to them, because ultimately that creationship power is within all of us. And that is the greatest shift that can happen in anyone's life. Does that mean you will never have a challenge again? No, none of this is implied. What is implied that you shift from being the observer of your life to being the co-creator of your life. And how could a loving parent, a loving father, mother ever want anything less than that for their children? Than for them to stand in their own beautiful power, realizing who they really are. There are some wonderful spirits in action today, and there are people holding spaces, and what they're holding the space for in their own powerful position is for you and I and everyone out there to begin realizing that. Because some people have the perception that there is this ultimate white knight, there's this ultimate person out there. And when they get into power, they will change everything, and everything will change, and everything will have changed. And what I'm telling you is that even if that wonderful person gets into power, and even if through their presence and their actions, things would be positively changed, it would not have created a real shift, because the real shift can only happen within you and I. And that we then project out into the world. And whoever we choose to take care of certain things for us, as a leader or as a president or as a representative, whatever we choose that form to be, they then are a reflection of that co-creative power that we are now projecting into the field. Otherwise, we would just go from king to king to king, and to ruler to ruler to ruler. And what this whole period in our shared human history is really about is to transcend this limited belief that we need a ruler, that we need someone to change things for us, which is ultimately not possible. Because the most valuable, the most challenging, the most joyous, and the most painful things are all within you. Because who experiences the joy of life? You do. Who experiences the pain of life? You do. Who experiences the magnificence? You do. It's you. It's within you. So how can anyone or anything outside of you permanently shift what's inside of you? They cannot. It is impossible. And even the prime creator cannot shift what you don't accept to shift. Because ultimately, you have to surrender to the realization and the memory of you being a co-creator. And that's what you're being cut off from every single day. That's what we're cutting ourselves off from every day. When we hope, when we despair, when we worry, when we fear, we have cut ourselves off from that co-creationship. We have cut ourselves off from that ultimate beautiful, constructive, positive power within us. That is the greatest shift that can happen within anyone. And the beautiful thing is, it is happening within so many. And if we give ourselves permission for this shift to take place. We won't have to limit our children any longer by wanting them to be as small as we are, so we don't feel so insignificant next to them. Because guess what? In the best possible scenario, they've never forgotten that they are co-creators. They have vivid imaginations. What does that mean? They have vivid visions. They're beautiful little co-creators. And what do? Because we feel so limited by life, we tell them how life really works. Now here, let me run reality by you, little fella. Get your head out of the clouds. What are we saying? What are we doing? What are we telling them? What are we teaching them? What are we pushing into them? Because it can change with us. It can stop with us, and something new can begin with us. That is the shift, my friends. It is not the quantum financial system. Whatever we shift inside, whatever we really begin to co-create together, will find an expression. And I can tell you that if we truly tap into the field of infinite possibilities, none of that which is currently available as an idea will do. It's like, and this is a very poor comparison, but just a little visual. When we use these things here, when you put that on airplane mode, well, what this thing can do is exactly what's in this thing right here. That's what it can do. When it's on airplane mode, it can do the things that it can do, what's in here, programmed into it. But if you take it off of airplane mode and you connect it to the internet, it has just, not infinitely, but to a very large extent, improved the ability to function, right? I mean, now it really comes to fruition. The comparison is not ideal, but when you take it over to who we are, when we disconnect from our co-creative power, from our spirit, from our God-given spirit, when we disconnect from that, we can only do what we have stored in our minds, what we have learned, and we can push and pull things back and forth. We can manipulate reality in that way. It's very limited. But when we reconnect, we tap into a field of infinite possibilities, and you receive ideas that perhaps have never been received before, and you receive creations that have never been received before. Now that gives us an infinite amount of possibilities and how we can shift things, change things, improve things. But ultimately, I believe it allows us to break through this limited version of reality that we're currently experiencing. That to me is the shift. That's what Christine and I have dedicated our lives to, assisting others in seeing. Because guess what? We were assisted too. There were others who helped us see it too. See, not any one person out there will be the white knight on a golden horse. That's never been the vision. And by God, I don't want to be a white knight on a golden horse and be that for anyone. I want you to know that each and every one of you is their own white knight on a golden horse. And we all have that ability. I'm quite real with this. If you think you cannot heal, yes, you can. If you think you cannot assist others in their healing, you can. And if you think you cannot put a real creative thought into the field and it becomes something manifest, well, guess what? You can. I have a box full of notebooks to prove it, where I can go and pull out any notebook and I can read my visions of the past and compare them to my present, where I'm living those visions. Do I know exactly how that mechanism works? No, I don't. It's not my job to know exactly how it works. I just know it works. I just know when I tap into it and when I'm honest and authentic and truthful with myself and all that is, I clear the way for co-creation to happen. And then things like money and houses and cars and vacations, it's all good. It's all good, but these things pale in comparison to what you can co-create. They'll be part of your experience too, sure, but they pale in comparison to what you can co-create. And how you pull your family into your life. Wonderful people that you knew had to exist, but you haven't met them. And then you meet them. And then you co-create with them. Have time together in joy. And when you leave, you're all better for it. You leave each other better than you found each other. What could be more beautiful, friends? That's the shift I'm talking about. You deserve the truth, but big tech does not want you to hear it. So we built our own Inspired platform on the inspiredchannel.com. Just click the link in the video description or the pinned comment.